Volocopters, new interpretation of the FAA instrument training regs, and more mask mandates? We've got that and more today on Taking Off. Welcome to Taking Off. I'm Christy Wong, on location from a hotel room somewhere in North America. Today's episode is brought to you by Flying Eyes and Colton Mortgage. If you're considering a residential mortgage or a refi, please check out our awesome friends at Colton Mortgage. They're pilots just like us, trying to do pilot things. And to support that habit, they're in the mortgage business. Now, let's get to it. Have you done your instrument rating in the last, say, 2 decades? If you have, you had to do your instrument cross-country at 3 different airports using 3 different approaches and utilizing 3 different systems, according to the old interpretation of regs 6165D. For example, according to that old interpretation, students would have to complete, say, a VOR approach and then a GPS approach, followed by an ILS or a localizer approach. The ILS and localizer would not count as 2 separate approaches, according to the interpretation, because it used the same system, even though they're different approaches. At least according to this old interpretation. But thanks to the good folks at AOPA, they were finally able to get a revised interpretation from the FAA saying now you can do 3 separate approaches and it doesn't have to be from 3 different systems. So in theory, you should be able to do 3 different GPS approaches, right? I would hope so, actually. VORs and NDBs are a dying breed, and ILS approaches are getting harder and harder to do at airports where training is available. For example, it's not really practical to get in an ILS approach at big airports like DFW or O'Hare. Your best bet is going to one of the smaller airports outside of the busier airspace, the ones that just have RNAV approaches. So what are your guys' thoughts on this whole interpretation or updated interpretation? Leave your comments below. Also, somewhat relevant, let me know what your favorite VOR is in the comments below. Many of you know that I have an unhealthy obsession with these little nav aids. I just love them. So I'd like to know what your favorite one is. Moving on. What exactly is a Volocopter? I'm so glad you asked. It's actually a startup company out of southern Germany that's been developing this electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. They've been priming a business model for a few years now for operating the VTOLs as a taxi-type vehicle in urban areas. Dan did a video with them last year at AirVenture, and you can watch it here. It's an interesting concept, really. Even more interesting is that they've already raised $170 million that they'll be using to kick off its first air taxi services, which they announced would be in cities like Singapore, Rome, and Paris. Holy cow, can you imagine watching these things fly people around? The company also confirmed that their first commercial services will be piloted. The VoloCity will have the technical capability to fly crewed or remotely piloted or autonomously at the time of commercial launch, said one of their spokespersons. However, we feel that public acceptance will be easier with a piloted flight. Once urban air mobility adoption increases, and cities have regulations allowing for non-crewed forms of flight, we will gradually move toward remotely or autonomous flights, they said. That, of course, would also depend on each individual city and their regulations. Oh, and speaking of, their vehicles are aptly named the VoloCity, VoloConnect, and VoloDrone. They've so far completed some 1,000 public and private test flights. So what do you guys think? Would you utilize their services, either piloted or autonomously? I don't know how I feel about being carried around in a giant drone like an Amazon package, but leave your comments below and let me know what you think. Now, in highly relevant news, Volocopter CEO Florian Reuter decided to step down after more than 7 years of leading the startup company. He's leaving of his own free will, and taking his place is Dirk Hoek. Dirk is the former CEO for Airbus Defence and Space. Bringing electric air taxis to market in the next years is a dream come true, not only for me, but for many, he said. It sounds like this company is really making waves in the aviation industry to attract such talent. When they started up, They were just a 5-person research project and have since grown into a company of over 500 personnel. They are continuing to grow and hope to be up and running full steam by the 2024 Paris Olympics. These electric flying apparatuses come just in time for the skyrocketing price of fuel these days. I have to be honest with you guys, it is a little concerning to see the cost of fuel rising so quickly. Every time I turn around in my home of DFW, we're seeing 100 low lead prices rising higher and higher. It seems like every day. It feels like 2008 all over again, and as a newly reinstated airline pilot, I'm a little bit concerned about it affecting airline travel in the near future. Honestly, what do you guys think? Do you think I have anything at all to be worried about? I'm sure everyone has their own opinion, but I also know we have a lot of educated, smart, and respectful viewers that can share some insight. I mean, I just got back to the airlines after being furloughed. It's hard not to be just a little bit gun shy, if you know what I mean. And finally, the TSA is extending the federal mask mandate until April 18th. This means that we must all continue wearing masks on airplanes, buses, in airports, and on trains. The extension is occurring simultaneously with cities and states actually dropping their mandates. With the COVID rates decreasing, pandemic policies are rolling back. The mandate was set to expire on March 19th, but the TSA decided to extend it for another month. This shorter extension of the policy, compared with previous announcements, suggests that the president and the CDC are weighing whether or not to lift the mandate entirely this spring if COVID cases continue to fall. Airlines and other travel industry groups did urge the White House last month to lift the COVID testing requirements for inbound international travelers, including returning U.S. citizens, as some countries such as the UK loosen entry requirements. This hasn't happened yet, but we're remaining hopeful. In fact, Dan is currently in Africa trying to find a place to do a PCR test that's required by the U.S. just so he can get back home. And I know a lot of crew members that commute in from other countries, and they have to get tested every single time they go to work. It's getting very expensive and it's time consuming. You may remember that these mask mandates for travelers took place shortly after the president took office in January of 2021. The government has repeatedly extended it over the past year, most recently in December. It's interesting to note that more than 71% of the record 5,900 reports of unruly airline passenger behavior last year have all been tied to disputes over mask mandates, according to an FAA report. Now, I normally don't form hard opinions on the channel because everyone has their own value system, and I truly do respect that. But guys, I have to be honest with you. I am so over these mandates. My opinion is that if you want to wear masks, wear them. And if you don't want to, then don't. It seems to be working out pretty well in just about every other sector because we are seeing the cases really drop. And if you want to follow the science, it's been scientifically proven that the air filtration systems on airplanes actually reduce the risk of germs transmission as a whole. It doesn't make sense that schools and other public places where germ transmission has a higher rate have all lifted their mandates and reduced restrictions, whereas air travelers, where the germ transmission rate is low, must continue with these mandates. I'm not trying to start a huge online debate. I'm just trying to understand the logic. And I'm a fairly logical person. I'm happy to engage in a respectful dialogue if you want to leave your opinions in the comments below. Okay, enough with all that. Thank you guys so much for supporting our channel. Please take a moment to check out our awesome sponsors. They help us with making aviation content, so I really appreciate those of you who have supported them and supported us. Also, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share our videos so we can keep getting more aviation content out to the masses. All right, I'm off to go get ready to work. And as always, thanks for watching. Fly safe, and we'll see you next time on Taking Off.